Okay, let's make a start. So, brain user manual, have you seen one? That's a good question. Can I have a show of hands? Anybody seen a brain user manual? No hands. Zach's seen one. Go ahead, Zach. Where did you see it? What was it called?
Psychology book.
Okay, psychology is interesting, but that's obviously on some of the issues that can arise in the human psyche. Maybe in my invitation it was clear, a brain that has evolved over millions and millions of years, that is so finely tuned. It's actually one of the best instruments on Earth and maybe in the universe. And it's natural. We grew with it. We don't need a manual for it. And yet it can go wrong, really badly wrong. And we're going to go into a small journey as to why does that happen, and is there anything that we can do about it? So it's a very interesting discussion, and the more interactive, the more useful it will be. So let's make a start. Now, you must have observed with the same information, okay, in a setting, whether it's a meeting, a division, a client discussion, a family gathering, with the same information, one person gets good results, others get not so good. It could be total results, it could be just for the duration of that dialogue. How come? It's the same brain, and don't tell me your brain is that different from the person next to you, because it evolved over possibly 2 billion years, going back to bacteria and all the way down. So it can't be that nature favored you with a special brain. We all have very, very similar brain, and yet that happens. Some will jump to this. Luck is maybe the factor. Anybody wants to say anything about luck? Is it skill? Is it luck? Is luck the differentiating factor? Why some people get good results, some get bad results with the same input? Anybody want to talk about luck? I must encounter it daily.
Actually, luck can happen only once in your lifetime, or maybe a few times in your lifetime. But your skill will actually carry you right through your lifetime. So whether it is a professional life, whether it is the personal life, skill is the most important thing, and that is the driver force. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So he believes skill is an important factor. No denying that. Luck also makes a big difference. But let's face it, you can also have a few people around the table, highly skilled, highly professional. Some make really good contribution. Some almost derail the whole discussion and spoil the meeting. How come? Especially if it's a technical meeting. So luck is a factor, skill is a factor, and yet we still get good and bad results. Okay. So do we have some people who are extra smart, or they have a better way of reasoning? We're going to explore that. Is it how smart you are, how good you are at reasoning? And why is clear thinking so rare? And you might think, what is it really? I thought it was quite common. You will come to see, as we discuss, it is really, and you must have faced it. And I tell you where I see it on a world scale now. When I look at the wars going on in the world, it is a huge sign just how retarded the thinking is around the world, that we can engage into killing each other at such a scale. That is not a pointer of clear thinking. Okay? So let's see. Now we get to the nitty-gritties. I am going a bit fast, but slow me down. But there's quite a bit to cover, so I'm going fast, but I'll try and be as clear as I can. So this question, what's your position? I want to talk about positioning and how valuable that is for good reasoning, good decision-making, and not making too many mistakes. So what's your starting position? Now, you might not be clear yet what I mean by position. Let's take a company A, company B. Okay? If company A has a good, healthy cash position and they face a problem, face an issue, and company B has a poor cash position, maybe they borrowed a lot, and then the financial crisis happened. Can you see where a good, healthy cash position puts you in a much better place to negotiate, to take on business, to still pay salaries and not, be in a really tight spot. Okay, so that's a cash position. What about strength? If you have good muscle, if you like, talking about just physical strength, if you have good body build, good muscles, etc., when you face an ailment, your body is in a good position to fight, to recover. While if you're frail, if you're weak, anything knocks you out, recovery becomes really difficult, okay? Good position in an examination. If you speak to your children, or I don't know if you might go to exams yourself, the prepared person is a good position to respond, to answer questions. Okay, so preparation is important and puts you in a good position to be relaxed, to be confident that you can answer the question. So position is vital in winning in the game of good decision, good reasoning. That's the ultimate position thing. Try and start to climb Everest from the base of the mountain versus base camp. I don't know if you can see the numbers. One is 564 meters. That puts you at a good position to start your climb, because to the top is 8,848. So you have quite a climb yet, but it will be nearly impossible to start all the way from the bottom. So you want to start from a healthy position. That's really what we're saying here. And preparation makes you capable of operating from a position of strength. And you know yourself, you enter a meeting, you enter an interview, whatever you do, if you're prepared, you operate from strength. Those who are not prepared get forced into a decision they don't really want to take, but they have no choice. We go back to the cash position. Let me ask here our financial gurus, Laith, what do you think if the company is short on cash and there is a big tender and you need a bank guarantee of 50 million, what happens?
Definitely, boss, this will affect the transaction, and we will have to find the ways how to facilitate, or sometimes it might be also options. We might also take it with the customers, like giving a security check or whatever, if we don't have that facility with the bank, or else we'll have to negotiate further with the bank to try to get it in whichever way, conditionally or whatever, or by maybe getting guarantees from a group, somebody, just to facilitate it, not to lose such tender or such, opportunity.
That's right. So it makes you make choices and decisions that aren't favorable, but you have no option because you're starting from a poor position. And it makes you make errors, enforced errors. And are we familiar with enforced error? Anybody who watched a lot of tennis will see that happens all the time. But let me give you one enforced error. You're sitting in a meeting and you say to somebody in the meeting around the table, "Are you so dumb or what?" This is a huge error, and it's going to create big problem in that meeting, and it may take many meetings to recover from. And nobody forced you to open your mouth like this, but we'll come to see how come some of us actually make those enforced errors, which we spend our days trying to recover from. And if you are in a good position, an average person can beat a genius because they're ready. A genius will try and maneuver, but an average person with good position is always in a much better situation. Okay, so we all have defaults that we go to. We're going to now see what puts us in a really poor positions, what gets us into trouble. So if you can act from a conscious reasoning mindset versus from default, you'll see different results. So biological defaults, okay, we all have them. This is our biology. Let's say you're by biology, you are short-tempered, short-fused. Then you will react different to somebody who is cool, calm, and collected. Okay, you will end up to react to stimulus almost on automatic, which is always dangerous. Okay, so take this stimulus. I'm trying to depict here a lion, and you run like the wind. And that is a stimulus response situation. That's okay in the wild. It saves your day, maybe, but not in the office, not at home. There are no tigers and there are no lions. And if you just do stimulus response, chances are those defaults which saved us in the maybe caveman days are no use today. Today, this is what tends to get us. Hot sales, special offers, deal of the day, and we jump. And you buy a lot of junk that you later think, maybe I don't need this. And mostly you use it once or twice and park it somewhere. So that's the default. Now, this is the stimulus that gets us. And all the marketing companies learned that trick. Okay? And defaults often make situation worse. I don't know if anybody's been ever chased by a dog. You know the dog chases you only because your default was a wrong reaction. The moment you run from a dog, the dog thinks it's either a great game or by instinct, they chase anything running. So don't run from a dog if you don't want the bite in your leg. It's a disaster. So defaults don't work in society today, and you need to find a way around them. So let's see if we know our defaults. What are defaults that we live by? And these are the defaults we'll come to see affects our thinking. Our perfect brain is spoiled. It is made to function poorly because of these defaults. The brain in itself, minus the defaults, would reason perfectly. That's why you won't find me giving you how-tos. Not much, although I'll give you a little bit of guidance at the end. But I don't like to give a lot of do this, do that. This is not a presentation about recipes of how to deal with things. I always believe when we get to know the truth, the brain is intelligent enough to find the best answers for your situations. But let's see the defaults. Emotional defaults. Anybody gives me an example of an emotional default? I need a quick response so we don't lose time waiting and looking. And if you spoke, give others the chance unless we give up on anybody responding, then maybe we need help. So emotional defaults. Maybe you can be emotional in temper, emotional in a person who gets sympathetic and cries easily, whatever is your emotion, but you will see how much this affects our life. And if that is your default, watch out. Don't tell me you don't know about ego default. If that's your default, it tends to wreak havoc with life because everything is filtered through that ego, and we'll come to see in more detail. Social default, okay? If you are highly susceptible to what others think of you, your social default is going to make you react, act, reason, respond in a certain way. Very few are immune to this default. If you're immune in any social situation, you're free, you're easy. It's not that you don't care, but you don't mind what other people's judgment are. If you are, you will have a face that looks like this face in the picture. Hopefully it's not you. And there is a default called inertia. If you're familiar from physics, inertia just means when things at rest, they want to stay at rest. When they're moving, they want to continue moving. The change is always problematic. So inertia dictates something. This guy has gone to the gym, but inertia says he doesn't want to do weightlifting. So he sits there and kills half an hour or 1 hour pretending to be exercising, and nothing happens. So we'll drill a bit deeper, but please, guys, help me out. So emotion. So we take here, this is a picture of maybe a meeting setting, okay? Emotion are designed for self-preservation. When you respond aggressively, you think you're protecting yourself, okay? They gave us evolutionary advantage, as we saw with the case of the lion, but there are no lions in Abu Dhabi or Dubai, so we can safely go around the streets and our houses with no threat. And we have a situation here. I'm giving an example of a meeting. If emotion gets in, what happens to the meeting? It becomes a battle of wills, a battle of anger, tolerance, whatever is your inclination, and the meeting completely derails. We don't achieve results, okay? Let's go to the ego. Ego, I think, has the most familiarity. You know, I like this image. I don't know, just instead of going somewhere, ego is what gets you into trouble. So, ego says, my self-image is much more important than good thinking, good reasoning. Have you noticed in any discussion, even with a loved one, even with a stranger or a colleague, we're always carrying this burden of trying to protect that self-image. So the mind, instead of being fully focused on the problem at hand, half of it, if not 90% with some people, is how do I preserve the self-image? What self-image? That I'm a clever person, that I know what I'm talking about, that you don't know what you're talking about, there is one-upmanship. This is an extremely taxing situation. And we all suffer it, and don't fool yourself to think I'm above the ego. You may be in a sane, calm situation, the ego is in abeyance, but you get things heated a bit, and self-image and self-preservation kicks in, then you behave differently. What do I mean by blindness to risk? If let's say I start on a project, now my self-image, my credibility is on the line. Everything points to continuing on that project is going to cost a lot, maybe disastrous. But there is my reputation on the line. I started it. So ego tends to blind us to the risk of continuing on a course of action, even though reasoning had told us this is not very clever. But ego takes over, and you push and push and push, and then you find yourself in a really bad situation. This is something to remember. Feeling right versus being right, okay? Or what really matters, being right or who's right? And here we really have an issue with this. I find, especially when I listen to discussions, mostly about people want to be right. They want to show that I know what I'm talking about. Does anybody resist admitting mistake? No, I don't think we have that issue. Anybody has an issue with this? Take some courage to say, yes, I must admit, I don't find it easy to admit mistakes. It's a very humbling thing. And if you can do it, really it's a good sign of maturity. I have actually stuck on the mirror in my bathroom this sticker, and I recommend it very strongly. Outcome over ego. If you put that in there, it's a continuous reminder when you're having a discussion, am I focused here on the best outcome, or am I preserving my ego? Am I protecting my ego? And every time you tend to forget it, next time you go to brush your teeth, you see that, and I must remember that today so I don't fall foul of this mistake. Social defaults. This may not be so obvious, but it is really, really powerful. Okay? I think almost all of us fear being judged by colleagues, by neighbors, by spouse, by children, everything. This is the problem with it, is that we end up living to meet the expectations of others instead of really our life unfolding to give us the most potential. We are living to meet expectations, and that is such a futile activity because these expectations vary every day and you can zigzag and flip-flop all the time. Okay, so nothing worse than that. I think that image, maybe some of us have suffered that, or you got children who suffered it, who they say, oh, my friends or something were talking about me and laughing. They're probably not talking about you or laughing about you, but that is part of the social judgment. And because of that, we also like, does anybody know what virtue signaling is? Go on, Zach.
It's when we try to show that we are maybe compassionate or a good person without actually caring about the situation, but we just want to show like, oh, I'm politically correct, so I will say the right thing, something like that.
Correct. I've seen it when I was visiting India once, and this guy was in a Lexus, big car, etc., and opened his window and threw out money to the crowd. And poor crowd, I think it was almost near a slum or something outside the resort there. And they dashed and on their hands and knees, etc. In his mind, he's showing that he's generous. There was actually grotesque kind of generosity, but it's virtue signaling only. Whenever you do virtue signaling, usually it's in poor taste. And if you want to, if you like, meet expectations, or if you don't want to be judged, you end up avoiding risk. And those people, if you're avoiding taking risk because you don't want to be judged, you never reach the full potential that you could as a human being. Okay, let's go to inertia. Inertia means I don't want to switch from A to B, back again, etc. I'll go, I will not go, I'll do it, not do it. Best thing, let's stay the course. Let's not change, let's not shift. If I stay, I will not be labeled a flip-flopper. This is often, especially for politicians, it's a big problem. To be a flip-flopper is a bad label. And you don't want to say, one day I support this, next day, no, I changed my mind, I support the other. So inertia forces you to stick with one course, even though the facts now support a change. Inertia means what when it comes to speaking out? Why is inertia and speaking out connected? Giant is having a good laugh. Go on, Giant. What is on your mind?
Yeah, basically, there are these outspoken people, the extroverts who don't hesitate. But as you said, inertia. So inertia holds you back, and it actually creates a self-doubt. Probably what you're saying will not be acceptable by people. So you may have good things to say, but you're stuck.
That's right. So I'm looking at you, and I feel a lot of inertia on almost everybody on my screen. Because I keep saying, speak up, respond, do something. What is stopping you apart from the inertia to act? Because acting brings you, if you like, exposes you, brings your opinion to the front. Other people could judge you. So inertia says, let it pass. I am not going to stick my hand out. So if that's your issue, believe me, it's costing you. It is nothing builds confidence more than to be a participant, than to be a player, than to instead of being a watcher. Don't stand on the line thinking it's a safe bet. It's costing you every session that happens. Now, you don't want to be a pain in the neck and every time you speak, but also you don't want to have a resolution that inertia means the comfortable position, say nothing, just stay where you are. So we've seen this resist change for comfort in almost everything. And that applies in jobs as well, changing job, changing profession, changing skill, specialization. If you stop doing that, inertia is making you choose comfort and limiting your potential. And therefore, career becomes stagnant and you have to watch out. What should I do? I don't want to stagnate. I'm not, and at this point, I'm not giving what to do, but this is very, very important. Allocate time for learning. If a week passes and you haven't learned anything new, that week is lost from your life. You must learn something. And I don't mean technical, I don't mean necessarily in your field, anything that actually tickles the mind. You think, oh, I didn't know that. I've learned this today. If you can do that, it's amazing, and you find how refreshing it is. Let me share with you quickly something I learned this week. I learned that if you plant seeds of apples instead of graft from one tree to the other, you will get bitter apples every time. The seed has the DNA of the original apples, and the sweet apple we have today is a very, very select few trees. So they don't plant seeds, they take a branch from the sweet tree and graft it on an apple tree, and you end up with a sweet apple tree. I didn't know that. I thought, it's in the seed. It's not in the seed. So just how remote, I'm just giving you an example. It could be from your field, but it's still stimulating. So some people say, oh my goodness, they're focusing on good judgment. You need to think about lots of things and plan and so on. But this says good judgment is expensive, but God help us, poor choices can bankrupt a person, a company. So investing in good judgment, which means getting out of your defaults, basically. That's going to be your most challenging part. Fortunately, there are some rules we can look out for, and rules usually are connected with, well, we don't like rules, but sometimes we can turn it around and use rules to our advantage. And I will give you an examples, and if you can apply them, it'll make a big difference. Because if you say rules of the road is you don't jump a red light, right? That becomes automatic. You don't have to think about it. You don't debate it. And it saves you penalties and it saves pedestrian. So rules that way helps everybody. So we know people never argue with rules. So once you accepted the rules, it's become part of your life. And you don't have to exhaust your willpower thinking about it every day. It's the rule. Finish. I brush my teeth every morning. I don't have to debate it. Okay. So let's start with some rules you may wish to apply. I'm not saying apply them, but trust me, some of those are worth writing somewhere and applying them. Can you do that before you open your mouth and respond in a rash way that could cause an upset? Because recovering from an upset is very lengthy and very costly. Can you count to 5 before responding? Can you sleep on it before you send an email? Or can you write an email and never send it? Because those can also, you cannot retract them. Once they go, they will hound you to the end of days. If you send something negative and I wish I never said that, now it's too late. What about this one? It says a Nobel Prize winner wrote this one. Never, this is I think Daniel Kahneman or one of, never say yes on the phone. Why is that? See, phone has a lot of social pressure. Somebody says, I'd like you to come over such and such night, and in the heat of the moment, enthusiasm, you say yes. And you think, oh God, what did I just agree to? Now I have to do this, do that, etc. So he made it a rule never to say yes on the phone. Okay, I'll get back. Actually, in most decisions, if you can adopt I'll get back to you, far, far more productive and less likely to cause trouble than if you think it's clever to respond instantly. This is another rule. If it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. Don't go when you're not so sure and say yes. Either it's clearly yes or no. And people will only dislike you or get annoyed with you for a few moments. And if you say yes to the wrong thing, you will hate yourself for the whole week. So apply that. I applied this years ago. I used to debate, should I exercise today or tomorrow? I used to think 3 times a week. But 3 times a week leaves you negotiating every day of the week. Is it today? No, I'll do it tomorrow. Anyway, it's 3 times a week. Now I just stopped it. Exercise every day. I have no choice. I have no discussion. The rule is get on with it. Exercise every day. How about this one? Make it a rule. And then there are no issues. You say, if you're invited, I don't eat dessert. Save yourself from eating a lot of junk. No matter how good the host is or hostess, they often put the cream and this and lots of sugar and, whatever you don't like. If you say, I never eat dessert, almost anybody I know, no, I don't eat dessert. I go and have a few dates and few Brazil nuts. That's my dessert. So I no longer have that issue. Save yourself a lot of empty calories, bad for you, especially before going to bed. I never eat dessert. Some people will get annoyed with you, but that's your choice. Or no commitment after whatever your hour is. I say no commitment after 8 o'clock. Hate it, love it, etc. For you, it might be 9, could be earlier. I don't think many people earlier, but that saves you also, and you get a good night's sleep. Okay? This is a good rule. And I'll put an image here. Some of you may or may not be familiar with this. You must have seen this example where if you put the small things first, here, let's say meetings and business and that, then you will never have enough room in your day. If you start with your big things, the big rocks, which is, let's say, your family, your spouse, your children, whatever is your big rocks, if you put them first, you will find you can fill your day in a healthy manner and it works. So decide what are your big choices, big rocks, and apply that. You'll have a much, much more productive day. And I will finish with this saying because it really appeals. Wisdom is knowing the long-term outcome of choices. And the unwise make a choice which appears to be okay today, but maybe in a week, a month, or a year, it's going to lead us into big trouble. Remember that and see whether, you can judge whether a person you're dealing with is wise, if you're wise or not. I hope you've got something out of this. Hope you've enjoyed it. And now if I can ask you to rate and leave us some comments. Thank you very much. Have a great day.